Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad and the Chicago and Northwestern Railway in Wyoming. This is the first annual, at least I hope it's going to be annual, Christmas Day layout video tour. This one's going to be a little bit different than they usually are. This is not scripted, in case you didn't guess, and it's probably pretty obvious. My videos are generally scripted, narrated, and I record the intro 4 or 5 times before I get something that I like. This time we're just going to wing it, and other than editing for camera shake and wandering around and things like that, you're going to see exactly what gets filmed. I'll also cut out any sort of foul language that I might use if I trip or something. So, let's get started. So I've got the camera off the tripod, and you'll be able to tell because it's probably going to be pretty shaky. So here we are on the stairs down to the basement. As we come down to the bottom of the stairs, this is a train orders hoop that was used at the Lovell, Wyoming depot for many years. Got this from Dave Todd, a good friend of mine who used to work for the Burlington Northern and then the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. So we come down to the basement stairs and we turn left, because if we turn right, we can right now, but that's going to be blocked off by track and everything. So we go past the library, which is, as you can see, pretty much a mess. This is my 3D printing workstation. I just got this for Christmas, and I actually got it early in December. It's an early Christmas present, and I've been messing around with it a little bit, but not too much lately. I'll get started again with it early next year, I think. So let's go on around to the trains. And this wall, dark as it is, has some of the certificates of appreciation for things I've presented at division, regional, and national conventions over the years. Anyway, if we turn left, that's the train room. Now right here is going to be a lift up. The benchwork over here, which is where Grable will go, has not been built yet. But we step into the room, and on the right, this is some of the newest work I've done. This piece of benchwork basically carries the track from Basin, which is just out of camera to the left, around Himes Curve, across the lift out, and into Grable right here. Right in here, where that sheet of plywood is just sitting, Basin will be up above, and it'll tie into the turnback curve way down there at the end. Now on the other side is Worland. This will be blocked by a backdrop that'll extend up about 14 or 15 inches above the track here. Over on this side, and again, this will all be hidden by a backdrop on the other side, that's Holly Sugar. You've seen me talk about that in a few of my update videos. Let's head on around this first peninsula. And directly ahead, you can see my workbench. Right now there's 4 cars on there that are in process of being weathered, and it usually is about this messy. This is where I build turnouts, freight cars, structures, all that kind of stuff. And I have quite a few freight cars to go. These 2 stacks of AccuRail boxes are all hoppers that will be used for beet service for Holly Sugar. I've still got to build most of those. I've got a few of them on the layout now, but I have a lot more to build. We come down to the first aisleway between these 2 peninsulas. On the right is Worland, on the left is Thermopolis, and straight ahead is the refrigerator. All sorts of nice cool drinks in there. This is kind of, I'm not sure you can read this. This is my whiteboard where I list the things that I need to do and mark them off as they've been finished. For example, build turnouts, code 83, left hand 1, right hand 0, and code 70, 5 left hand and 2 right hand. That was for Worland. I haven't updated it for Basin, which would be the next town. Lists some of the rolling stock I still need to build and shows how many I've actually built. For example, 4 hoppers, and I've actually built 6. So moving right along, we come down next to this wall right here And that gets us to Holly Sugar. Most of these tracks are not permanently attached yet. They're just laid in place so that they can be adjusted. The rear tracks, the two tracks, the ones with the hoppers on them and the one in front of it, are going to be up about 12 scale feet above the foam, which was basically where they unloaded the beets into a water flume. And that's what's called beet flume right there, and it'll run right over into the processing buildings. We go around this curve and we wind up at the far end of Thermopolis. That's, in terms of railroad jargon, that's the west end. In terms of compass direction, this is the north end of Thermopolis. Unfortunately, Thermopolis extends right down behind the furnace, but all of the switches are accessible either from here easily or from the other side of the wall. I didn't put anything in between where it'd be hard to get to. Let's walk around there and take a look. Here we are at the other end of Thermopolis, and you can see that switch right there next to the gondola is about the hardest one to reach, and it's easy to reach. You step up next to the whiteboard and you can reach right over and flip the switch. The upper track there is the Chicago Northwestern line to Riverton, Hudson, and then finally on to Lander. That's going to be hidden by a backdrop that's about as tall as the Northwestern track is high down at the far end of Thermopolis. And above that will be a black curtain, like a theater curtain or something like that, that will hang down just below the top of the backdrop. So we come on around these curves, and we wind up looking down at Wind River Canyon. Now obviously this is still under construction, and I have not done much work on Wind River Canyon for probably about 6 months. I've got some pictures laid out here that kind of show what I'm going for. That's what it should wind up hopefully looking like. Here, and this picture is what that should look like, more or less. This is Showbon, where the Chicago Northwestern takes off, that runs towards the back. That's where the Chicago Northwestern takes off from the Burlington on the way to Riverton and Lander. So we come on around, we're heading back towards Casper, which is eastbound. This siding is Powder River. I'm about ready to start building stock pens that will extend the entire length of this siding, which is about 6 stock cars, so it's not real big, but it'll hold 6 stock cars and a drover's caboose. And then we get on down into some of the area that I've done some of the scenicking on. This is the high plains with the prairie grass, sagebrush, and other scrub brush of the area between Casper and Shoshone. And then we run on into Casper. But before we do that, let's go take a look at the Chicago Northwestern. Okay, so the Chicago Northwestern disappears behind the Canyon Mountains at this point. Now I've got to figure out a way to disguise that entrance somehow. There'll be some bushes and whatnot, but it's probably still going to be pretty obvious, and that's just something I can't avoid. It runs along behind the Wind River Canyon all the way down to the end of the peninsula and then back, as we saw, and it winds up coming out on the upper level right there. At this point, we're getting close to Riverton. Comes up, sweeps around this curve, and we're into Riverton itself. Now Riverton, the track is painted, but that's about it. So we come down here and we get to the end of the siding, and just past that is where the passenger depot is. And then we get on into one of the first areas I scenicked, and that's that narrow little shelf that runs all the way down to the far end of the room. So here we are. I call that corner up above Casper, I call that Cornfield Corner. And then we get into Hudson. Now that's a temporary station. Hudson had a single story station. I've got a couple of pictures of it, and that's all I've ever been able to find anywhere. I'll be scratch building that station. And then there were stock pens, quite a large number of stock pens in Hudson. And I learned recently there were some coal mines near Hudson, and I'm trying to figure out how I can add those in when we go on around the corner past where the benchwork is built right now. We go on around the corner, and along here is the bridge over the Poposia River. Somehow I'm going to try to take a spur off of the Hudson passing siding, run it into the backdrop, and partway down the wall behind the backdrop there to represent the coal mines. So continuing on around, we'll go around the corner here and block this doorway. And up here, about the height of the top of the TV, running all the way back, is the town of Lander. Now that's the end of the line for the Chicago Northwestern. It never went any farther west. So Lander here will end without a lift out at the far end. It'll simply end about where the hallway comes into the room. Back to about where we left off to go to the Chicago Northwestern. This is Casper. This is the main division point yard. This represents actually 2 yards that were in Casper, both the Burlington and the Northwestern yards. They're just combined into one on the layout. Here, behind the roundhouse, we have the oil tank loading racks for the Standard Oil refinery. Now that refinery was huge. My representation will handle about 16 tank cars at a time, split between the 2 tracks. Then just to the left of that, of course, is the engine servicing facility. This is an 11-track roundhouse. Turntable is a Walther's Cornerstone 90-footer. I'm going to need 2 more of those. Plus, for Lander, about a 70-footer to handle the short locomotives that run to Lander. Anyway, engine servicing facility, coaling tower, ash pit will be right next to where the gondola is. And then as we come on down, we've got Wyoming Concrete Producers, Natrona Lumber, Schultz Water Company Grocers. Now this locomotive belonged to Chuck Reisha, who is a friend from the local train club. He passed away this year, and his wife gave me this along with a few other things. At some point, I'm going to put a small monument there to Chuck Reisha. Let's see, as we turn, you can see the main classification tracks, and right behind them is the partially built and still not finished icing platform. It will handle a grand total of 24 reefers at a time. Behind that is another spur where Natrona Transfer, the team track, and then Rocky Mountain Drilling is way over here. Now down here, where the track just runs off and you can see the cutout in the pink foam there, this is going to be revised a little bit to extend the AD track, which is the one just to the left of these 3 hoppers and the 2 boxes, because it's just a little bit too short to handle those 24-car trains of reefers. So it's going to extend on around this curve, which goes towards Douglas a little bit, right over to about where this big hole is. This is Douglas. Now we come on around here again, and the backdrop you can see and the benchwork is already in place for Douglas. Right now it's being used to store stuff, any flat surface, right? What you're seeing in the room is pretty much what it looks like every day as I'm working. Sometimes the floor gets pretty much covered with sawdust and drill chips from drilling holes and things like that when I'm building benchwork, but I did sweep it up, and I cleaned off most of the stuff that was laying up on the layout in order to make this video. But this is pretty much what it usually looks like. And my plan for next year is hopefully to at least get started on Grable Yard and get the main line through, and maybe even connected all the way around through Douglas. I will get Basin finished and fully operational hopefully before my next operating session, which right now I'm planning for the end of February. That may change due to personal circumstances, which I'll talk about in my January update video. Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope this wasn't too terrible. Merry Christmas, everyone, and I will see you in a few days with the January update. Take care.